Hi, my name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. I was reading This Naked Mind by Annie Grace this morning, and there was a passage that reminded me of a little bit of the hypocrisy with the way that drug education has been handled, especially in America. I don't know how it's been handled in other countries, but I am a child of the 80s. I grew up with the DARE program, and I also grew up around people who drank alcohol. And it just reminded me that we need to be very cognizant of the way that we talk to our children about alcohol and drug use, and very honest about alcohol, drugs, what addiction looks like, and how people who are addicted to these substances don't necessarily look any different than you, me, your parents, my parents, or anybody else. So, reading from what Annie Grace wrote, she says, a recent study shows that kids who are allowed sips of alcohol are more prone to abuse alcohol as adults, and kids with alcoholic parents are 4 times more likely to have problems with drinking in adulthood. At school, kids receive a message of caution against alcohol, but at home, our kids receive another, much stronger message from the ever-present bottle of wine. And this is that statement is what struck me, because it reminded me of the drug education that I got in school, and this would have been in around 1988, 1989. The DARE program, Drug Abuse Resistance Education, was really starting to ramp up in schools around the country. This was on the heels of Nancy Reagan's Just Say No campaign and the war on drugs, and which has largely shown to be ineffective. And what I was taught in the DARE program was the overriding message that drugs are bad, drugs are addictive, and if you engage in drug use, you will likely ruin the lives of yourself and those around you. And then every day I would go home and I would see my parents and their friends drinking. And it was a very stark difference. And basically the message that I got was, if you drink and your life looks like this, it's okay. If you drink and you're living under a bridge, that's when you have a problem. So when I got to be an adult, I used, and I know this is a very common thing for people, I used that as a marker, and I said, well, I can't be an alcoholic because I'm holding down a job, I've got a marriage, and my wife's not threatening to leave me. I'm doing well at my job, I'm supporting my family, I don't get arrested, I don't do X, Y, Z. I had all these reasons why I wasn't an alcoholic. And this goes back to what I talked about in yesterday's video regarding focusing on the differences rather than the similarities. And what was missing from that drug education that I got was that alcoholism and addiction look very similar regardless of who has them, and you can experience these things regardless of what your life looks like. So it's not just people who have fallen to the very bottom who are suffering from addiction, and what I don't think was emphasized enough was looking at the signs of addiction. Now, for full disclosure, my mom did try to teach me these things. And she did try to say, look, you've got a history of addiction in your family. Here are the things that I see in the way you drink that make me concerned about you. But that message was not being backed up by all of the cultural cues and societal messages that I had received my entire life. The other thing about the drug education I received as a child in school was that I was told all sorts of terrible things about drugs, what they did to you, horror stories about people who would take drugs and do crazy things and, smoke a joint of marijuana and then jump out of a window and all this crazy stuff. And I smoked when I first got high off of marijuana. That was a turning point for me because I looked back on all the things that I had been told in these drug education classes, and I thought, it's all been lies. I don't feel anything like what I was told I would feel like. And so at that moment I realized, and I have, in the 20 years that I have both experienced addiction and now gone through recovery, I've kept the belief that we need in our education for children and teens about drugs and alcohol, we need honest, fact-based, evidence-based education. We can't try to play off of their fears. We cannot try to manipulate them into doing things because then we're just pressuring them the same way that their peers are going to try to pressure them to do drugs. And we cannot lie to these kids. We cannot try to scare them straight. It doesn't work. We've got to be honest. We've got to respect that children and teens are going to, when we're not there, children and teens are going to make choices of their own accord. And we have to respect that. And we have to arm them with information. And that information cannot be fear-mongering information. It has to be fact-based. It has to be fact-based. We also have to look at our own behavior. And if you are telling a child that they have to be careful not to drink, and yet you and your friends are having parties in front of the child and drinking large amounts of alcohol, that sends a very mixed message. I'm not saying it's wrong for people to have parties and drink alcohol. I don't believe that it is. I think that that's okay for a lot of people. It's not okay for me. I need to be at that party and just be sober. But for a lot of people, it's okay to do that. But the message to children can't be, you don't do this, I can. So I think that we need to rethink the way that we educate children on drugs and alcohol, because unfortunately, the terror we've tried to instill in children through things like the DARE program and the Just Say No campaigns and the war on drugs, it does not work, because the experience of euphoria, the experience of having something in your life fulfilled that you get, especially those of us who become addicted to these drugs, when we first start engaging with them, it feels like finally we found the answer to life. And when you feel like that, and you've been told all your life that these things will destroy your life, then that creates a very difficult, very difficult decision to make. And usually, I think, like myself, most kids will say, well, everything that I've heard up till now has been a lie, and I'm going to keep doing the drugs because they are not affecting me the way I've been told until this point. So honesty in education, fact-based education. I say all this knowing that there are people out there who are far more educated in this particular field than I am. There's been a lot of research about what education works and what doesn't. But I did want to talk about this some because I feel like it is so important for us to be honest and to really be thoughtful about the way we engage in children with alcohol and drugs. Because look, they are going to try them. Children, teens experiment with these things, and they have for thousands of years. It's not going to change. What needs to change is the way we talk about it. And if we can talk about things differently, openly, honestly, and invite their questions, and then destigmatize addiction, so that if they do see that they're developing a problem, they can come for help without feeling shame about it. That's what we really need to be working on. The scare tactics don't work. We need education, we need support, we need destigmatization, and that's really the direction we should be going. That's all I've got for today. Hope you have a good one, and I'll be back tomorrow with more.